NBA tonight, Mavs, Clips, huge game. Rachel Nichols covered the NBA since 1993. It is good to have Rachel on again on the show today. These NBA playoff games, it's funny. Remember it was like a week ago, Nick Nurse was yelling on the sidelines. The refs couldn't hear him. And last night, Tibbs is yelling.
Man.
Well, you can't hear anybody.
Yeah.
So everybody's always like, well, the coach was saying this. The officials couldn't hear Nick Nurse. Mm-hmm. The Knick players couldn't hear Tibbs. And so you have to remember, basketball in New York and Philadelphia is a wonderful television product. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to hear the coach if he's 12 feet away. And last night you got into that situation. I still like the Knicks in the series.
Yeah. I mean, look, the odds are the odds for a reason. They've got Game 7 at home. That being said, if the Sixers really come out strong in Game 6 and just thump the Knicks, I'd be a little bit more worried about the Knicks in a Game 7 because they will have had multiple opportunities to close it out. And we've seen it so many times once that happens and it gets into a team's brain. But I think the Knicks are favored. I do think, though, that Joel Embiid may have finally found his guy in Tyrese Maxey, and that no matter what happens to the Sixers, if they lose this series, they have to feel good going into the offseason. Because remember last offseason, we were at the point where the James Harden drama was going on and Daryl Morey is a liar being held up all the way in China, all of these kinds of things. Joel's getting a little frustrated. He actually liked James. They got along really well. So then it was like, hey, come on, why can't you work this out with him? That kind of thing. He'd gone through all the Ben Simmons drama and been so patient with the franchise of that. And there were a lot of rumors swirling around of if things don't go well this season, Joel Embiid is going to ask to be a New York Knick. And guess who was at Joel Embiid's wedding this past summer as well? New York Knicks president Leon Rose, who was, of course, Embiid's former agent. The two are still close, and the rumors had just got even more swirling after that. And Tyrese Maxey steps into that void after Harden is traded. All season becomes a guy that Joel knows he can rely on. And then in that game last night, not only went full Reggie Miller with the shot making, but carried Embiid when Embiid was clearly too hurt to do a lot of things he normally does.
No, I think the KD rumors make a lot of sense. First of all, because Phoenix needs to reboot. It's not working. Mm-hmm. All the perimeter stuff. So, and the feeling is they could get more for Booker, but he's kind of the central piece. Yeah. He's kind of the Phoenix kid. And the Beal contract, there's not much you can do with it. The Durant piece you could move. Also, Julius Randle, if the Suns got him, actually provides a little bit of what Phoenix isn't, which is physical and tough. You're not going to go get DeAndre Ayton back because Booker didn't fit the locker room. So Julius Randle, who's a really nice player, if he's your 3, probably, not a 2, he could fit. But I do think there's something to be said about New York, is that for years and years, you know this organization better than I do, for years and years they reached.
Yes.
They gave up the farm for Carmelo. Then he was a big chandelier in an empty mansion. And then, Amari Stoudemire had bad knees.
Yes.
And it's just like, they reach. They've actually, because they made a nice move at the trade deadline, they've become a really smart, patient franchise. But now I think Embiid, or my preference is KD. I think the time is now. KD's 36, starting next year. Do you think the KD stuff is realistic?
Yeah. I mean, look, first, the Embiid was definitely who they had their sights on. And I do think Tyrese Maxey has changed that equation in terms of Embiid being happy in Philadelphia. So then it becomes, who else do you get? Fortunately, OG Anunoby looks like he wants to be in New York. And so when they are able to re-sign him, I think that is going to be a win for them long term. And then they still have room to get someone else. KD makes so much sense to me because you and I talked about this last time I was on the show. I think that's where he should have gone all along. If you're going to leave Golden State, and we can debate whether he should have or not, the Knicks are where he should have gone after that. It was the natural fit for him. And the fact that he sort of missed that opportunity, if he could go back and get it now, I think that fan base would embrace him. And once that fan base embraces you, and they are the largest fan base in the NBA, then it quiets some of the other noise around the league of other fan bases griping about, KD asked for another trade, or KD's moving again, or this guy can't find a home, or his legacy, this or that. I think that it would be a smart move for Kevin, and I think it would be a smart move for the Knicks. But, look, we'll see if they want to disrupt the chemistry that they have by bringing in as big a star as Durant, or if they want to go a different route and just keep adding these pieces of good players. I mean, DeMar DeRozan is a name that's come up for New York. He's a guy who is an excellent basketball player, can bolster a lot of areas that they need.
Doesn't take the ball to Brunson's hands.
Doesn't
He's a clear
take the ball,
two,
right.
3. Yeah.
And also is not going to change sort of the geometry of the locker room the way bringing in a Kevin Durant would. So it just kind of depends on what they want. But if the Suns are looking to get off of KD's contract and KD is looking for a place he can go where he won't just get hit with a mountain of criticism all over again, I think New York could be that place.
It is interesting. The Bucks, the Sixers, and the Lakers have each had 3 coaches in 6 years each. So how seasons end, you can get swept. It's landing different than a 6-game series. So you have Dallas, where Kyrie and Luka have really gotten along. Mm-hmm. And if they lost this series in 7 or they win this series, I think they bring the band back and it's good.
Yeah.
But if Dallas gets beat tonight and without Kawhi for the Clippers again, and you got kind of old heads, Harden and Westbrook and Paul playoff P, and Kawhi's not there, and they're knocking you out, right? And they win this series. Mm-hmm. Dallas is fascinating because it took Dirk Nowitzki forever to get the pieces.
Yes.
He never really got a second star. He got a good chemistry set.
Well, he had Steve Nash, just didn't keep him.
Yeah, at a different time, and then he moves to Phoenix.
Yeah.
But it's like, what does Dallas do? Cuban sells the team. Mm-hmm. What does Dallas do if they don't get out of this series? Are they just going to bring it back?
They kind of have to. They made decisions at the trade deadline that lock them into a path for the next couple years. I think if Dallas loses the series, one of the big reasons would be because of Luka Doncic's knee. It certainly was a big factor in why they lost the last game. You could just see it. He wasn't as mobile out on the court, and he's still able to be Luka, and he still scored points, and he still did things. But that difference between being a very, very good player and being the best player on the floor, which is what we always say is the deciding factor in NBA playoff series, is that knee. So I'm curious to see what happens tonight when he comes out. Does he look like he looked in Game 4, which was not as mobile, a little stiff? He'd made so many great strides on defense over this last season or two, and those are really gone in that game because he just couldn't move around and defend the way he wanted to. So if we get that Luka Doncic, and that's the reason that they end up losing the series, I don't think you have to blow anything up or do anything because that's just, hey, it's bad luck that he had this knee injury at that time. And I think Luka will have patience knowing that that might be the reason. If things go wrong in a very different way, then we can have that conversation. But the way things are looking right now, they're super competitive. They're still favored to win, even though, you look at the games the Clippers have still on their floor. They've got 2 of the next 3. Yeah. But the Mavs are favored to win, and they certainly have players who can get the job done.
I'm surprised by people that I respect kind of buying into the LeBron could be out of L.A. I just don't see it at all. Jeannie Buss is a wonderful person, and she does a great job at her job, but she's not a rich owner. And to get those local cable deals, this is why Kobe at the end was way past his prime. They paid him a fortune.
Yep.
You get whatever it's Spectrum or
worth
whatever.
Every dollar to that franchise.
LeBron sells tickets. They sell out all their games. I know what they charge for courtside.
Yep.
They're not doing that in a rebuild.
Nope.
So why all the LeBron leaving LA talk?
Because if he did, it would be such a big story that it's a little too tempting for people not to talk about, Lakers fans, people even within the organization. And the fact is that he is, a little mercurial. He holds things at arm's length. He certainly is going to make them sweat it, in my opinion. If I had to guess the way this is going to play out, I would say that he opts out of his contract. I would say that he then makes them wait a few weeks to decide that he's going to come back. And it's not about the money. They've already leaked that they'll offer him as much money as he wants. They've already leaked that they'll draft Bronny if that ends up being what he wants. It is about the roster. And I think it is going to be very interesting to watch LeBron through that first week of free agency because, hey, maybe he just re-signs with the Lakers and they're done with it. But the more likely scenario, given his history, is that he waits a little while. And he shows up at Team USA training camp, which starts July 6th. And he's got Steve Kerr talking in his ear on a piece of video that runs all over TV. And then people say, oh, what about, weren't the Warriors interested in getting him? Oh, he's sitting next palling around with Joel Embiid. I know that the Sixers would love to have LeBron. So I think he's going to let some of that talk fester to make sure that they make the moves in free agency and at the draft that he wants them to make. Because that didn't happen at the trade deadline this year. And we haven't really seen LeBron have the influence he had over that front office, maybe since the Russell Westbrook trade, since he sort of promoted that and that didn't work out. We just haven't seen Clutch have the same voice. We haven't seen LeBron have the same voice in the Lakers roster moves. He has the opportunity this summer, if he takes it, to have that voice because he can withhold from them, am I going to resign or not?
So we got into this discussion yesterday, and it's kind of a 30,000 feet discussion. It's not urgent, but I think it's fascinating, is that, the NFL, it's the shield. That's the star of the league. Baseball, it's its history and its past. But international soccer and the NBA, your league's as good as your star.
Yeah.
And your team. And Jordan left, and the NBA embraced Marbury and Steve Francis and Iverson, remarkable players, but the audience didn't like them. And so 50% of the people. I mean, Tiger Woods left golf. They left like tournaments folded.
Yes.
So the face of the league question. And I said this, you have to want to be the face of the league.
Yep.
Jordan did, Magic did, Kareem didn't.
Yep.
So you have to want it.
Yep.
I think Ant Edwards would embrace it.
Yes.
But it's Minnesota. People forget this, Rachel. Outside of LeBron and Cleveland, the stars in my life, Jerry West in L.A., Dr. J in Philly, Magic, Bird, Jordan, they're all big markets.
Yeah.
So Minnesota, my guess is Wemby, Ant, and not whether they work or not. I mean, if you had to guess, Jokic doesn't want to be the face of the league. I'm not sure Luka wants to be the face of the league. Your guess, next 8 years, 10 years.
Look, I mean, Luka's already 25, so I think we've already talked about how big a star he is. I think he's going to finish second in MVP voting. So he is poised to become, when LeBron and Steph and KD all retire.
He'll be the scorer. No.
I think Luka will be the face that we see. But when you look at the generation behind him and the young guys coming up, I have to say Victor Wembanyama is being sold short in these discussions in a way I don't quite get. I think Anthony Edwards is a superstar. Yeah. He is so magnetic, obviously has the game, but also, as you said, has the drive, has the killer instinct. Commercials are fantastic. But Victor Wembanyama, to me, if he has good health, could end up as a top 5 player of all time. I think we've already seen the indications of that. And I know it's very early, and I will be happy to stand up and say I'm wrong if I'm wrong. But that is what I am seeing right now. And I think that he is going to become eventually the face of the NBA because he is just going to keep winning. I think whether it's Defensive Player of the Year, whether it's eventually MVP, whether it's eventually titles, I think we will be saying his name over and over and over again.
It's interesting. Take Shaq out. Centers usually haven't been the face of the league. They break down. They don't sell shoes. And people don't see themselves as being Shaq.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the new wave of European bigs, they handle the ball. They're flashy. They pass. It's a more fun game. It's just not power.
Yeah.
Power usually isn't the face of the league. People want, like Moses Malone. They want
moves, baby. They want moves.
Yes.
Show me your moves.
Yeah, and Wemby and Chet Holmgren both.
They got moves.
They got all sorts of juice. So it's great seeing you. So tonight, Dallas Lakers, you're at that game tonight, right?
I am,
Or, excuse me, Mavs Clippers. You like the Mavs? I think Westbrook's going to hit tonight.
Oh.
I have a feeling Westbrook's going to deliver. Harden's been so good in this series. I feel like Dallas the last 2 days has worked on. We've got to get the ball out of his hands.
Yeah.
He ate them alive. You have a lean tonight? How you feel?
This is a toss-up because honestly, I really think it depends on the health of Luka's knee, which they won't know till after he participates in warm-ups. If I had to say, I'd say Clippers tonight, Mavs for the series. Is that enough of a hedge? That's a real hedge.
That last game was such good television.
So, Rachel, when does James Harden turn into a pumpkin? Game 6 or 7? Because we know it's coming. It's coming at some point.
But he was so good last game.
He was so good. And you know what I like about the situation he's in right now is that in Paul George, he has someone next to him who can be just as explosive, more explosive in some cases, but James still has a green light to shoot in the scenario without Kawhi. When he was playing the role in Philadelphia where he had someone explosive in Joel Embiid, he didn't have the green light to be the James Harden of old. He had to be more of a complement. With Kawhi out, he can be a little bit more of that James Harden, but it's not ISO James Harden because he has Paul George next to him. So hopefully doesn't run out of gas for Clippers fans. But I do think that Luka has the potential to be the best player in the series. The best player in the series usually wins the playoff series. It just depends on his physical health.
I feel like a supporter of Paul George. No good player in the league gets more crap than Paul George.
I think he is the most underrated player in the NBA.
It's incredible. I watched his... And you know what's funny? Years ago, people kind of bagged on his playoffs when he was losing to LeBron, Bosh, and Wade, and he had Roy Hibbert and basically like shooting guards. Good. It was a good roster.
It was a good team. Roy Hibbert was the right guy for that moment, but it was not the big three.
I think Paul George is an unbelievable player.
Absolutely.
And all the unbelievable players get love, and he doesn't get. Even when you look at his regular season playoff numbers, they're very even. It's not like you get one guy and the other guy. Now, you could look a little bit at Harden's playoff numbers, and you see a small decrease in performance. I don't know. I think Paul George is great.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.